So, Dr. Tammy, why call it the Naked Doctor?
Well, it's the naked truth about health, wellness, and lifestyle, but it's also fun not to wear clothes in the studio.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, this week to the Naked Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Tammy.
And this is Cryssie.
And we have a great show for you today.
Yes, we do.
We love
As
saying
usual.
that.
Yeah.
As usual, yes.
Sets it up.
Sets it up.
And then we knock it down. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. And we have Marsha Lane Foster in the studio this morning with us. Amazing guest. And I just want to share with you a little bit about who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of talking this morning about I am kind of a little bit of a stalker of her on Facebook because she's so awesome.
Yes.
She is a Northwest Arkansas native, and she lives in Springdale. She has 3 grown daughters, which is amazing. And she had all 3 of them before the age of 18. So she's going to share her story with us, which is really powerful because a big part of what she does, which I'm so excited to share everything that she's into and doing, kind of pivots around that story.
Wow.
So, most of us are, not even... I think I was probably playing with Barbies when I was 15 still.
Right.
So, and that's not a judgment. That's just saying that's growing up fast, and you just have a lot of life experience, that I'm excited she's going to share. She's been a professional photographer for 5 years and passionate about it for 12. And we were talking about before the show, she was even playing photographer as a little girl.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, that's great. So that's been in her life a lot. And she's got a vast experience of genres, and she likes to do weddings, editorials, and the thing we're going to talk about today is her hostage project, which is really exciting and cool and very provocative. I was just like re-looking at some of this stuff today, and it's just so cool. And she's got a passion for women's issues because of some of her own issues, and her greatest work art right now is I can never say this word. It's a French word for bedroom, boudoir.
Boudoir,
Yeah,
boudoir.
okay.
Yeah, men are. I think
boudoir.
men have a gene, or lack a gene to be able to say boudoir.
Boudoir.
Men
Boudoir.
can't say
They
it.
just can't.
Boudoir. Boudoir.
And the boudoir.
My fiance calls it
Are you having
boudoir.
some-
Boudoir.
Boudoir.
Boudoir. Well, that just made it so not sexy.
Doesn't
right
it?
there.
So we're going to talk about that because that's really fun. And, a lot of people, especially in the Bible Belt, are probably a little judgmental about bedroom photos,
Yeah,
and
bedroom
thinking.
photos.
And I
Amen,
did
sister.
it. I did it about 2 years ago, but I guess it was before I knew you. And there was a girl in Tulsa who did it. I did it as a wedding present to my husband, probably even 3 years ago now. It was one of the most powerful things I've ever done. It was just beautiful, very tasteful. It's not like you're doing pornography
not
at
at
all. So I just want to kind of put that to rest. We're going to talk
and it's
about
nice
that.
to have something to look at yourself that you go, oh, you know what,
Absolutely.
I am sexy, I am pretty, these are fun. It's just,
what I'm
going
to do with mine? Nobody has seen mine, of course, because they're my husband's. They're private. But when I'm 80, I'm going to look back at those and go, man, I had a rockin' hot body when I was in my 40s, and I'm excited
Be
about that.
Be proud of that.
Yes. And she encourages women to get out of their comfort zone, which is great. So I want to talk about that today. And she has the Hostage Project, which is absolutely beautiful. So we're going to talk about that and what that was about and what that's done and continuing to do for women in our community. She's very passionate about the women's shelter and center and helping women as well. She's a mentor and a coach, and so that's really exciting working with women. And she's also on the Art Center of the Ozarks with the Rogers Public Library. I'm going to butcher that. Got a little bit of tongue-tied this morning. And her studio is in downtown Rogers. So I'm excited to talk about all that stuff. Really cool stuff.
Oh, my goodness.
And stuff that's what we kind of think a little bit maybe as taboo as, like some of these photos and stuff. Again, very provocative. But the story behind that. And I think where we have been moving, you and I, Cryssie, is, creating an environment that really promotes this lack of judgment and getting people to really see this life as an experience,
right? And
getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
it's in that box where all the chaos and all the craziness happens, and when you start freeing yourself up and really open yourself up to opportunities, I think that's where the beauty really starts happening. So I'm excited to talk
We're
about all
big
this
on
today.
the self-acceptance as acceptance of others and boy, and that's a big part of our show too, is that we're really real. We talk about the things we think about and things that happen to us in our own lives, and hoping to reach women so that they understand it's okay to talk
You
about.
ladies are my people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Marsha was saying that she was like, I was so impressed because a lot of times when we have guests on the show, sometimes I don't even want to have guests on the show because the professionalism is just like, some people act like it's a nuisance when I ask them to have an opportunity to be interviewed on the show.
Come and talk about your stuff? I don't know.
And Marsha was all over it. She sent me her bio like the next day. I mean, we gave her short notice. She sent me her bio. She's got a free gift for everyone today.
Wonderful.
So stay tuned. You'll want to hear about that free gift. And then, sent me the talking points that we're going to talk about today. And so it's just so nice to have.
On the ball.
On the ball.
You.
I'm like, whoa.
So I'll just take a nap while you talk. Okay.
But
this one's gonna be easy.
She
for me.
said she'd been kind of sending out to the universe, just manifesting opportunities like this. And so
Fantastic.
when people are tuned in to those to that vibration,
they find each other,
that frequency on the radio,
Yeah.
they find each other. And so I was telling her, it's like she's been on our minds for several weeks, if not months, to kind of reach out.
Great.
So it's cool.
Serendipitous rendezvous.
So all those people that are
Well, I see it
ready
as
to
a
hear this
frequency,
message. Hey,
huge
let's go.
opportunity. I mean,
Yeah.
free advertising, I'm all over that.
And then there's that.
And there's that fun stuff too. I love that.
So Marsha, thank you for being here, and
Thank you for having me.
so exciting. Let's start with you telling your story a little bit.
I grew up with a mother who was chronically depressed and lost my dad when I was 11. And so kind of grew up on my own. I had brothers, but they were quite a bit older than me. So they were in high school and young adults whenever I was a child. So kind of just grew up a little bit on my own. I mean, I was cared for, but my mom was kind of in her own little world. So because of that, maybe I may or may not have a rebellious bone in my body. But I ended up getting pregnant when I was 14. So I ended up marrying him when I was 15 and had another child with him when I was 16. He just kind of ignored us, basically, went on with his life and kind of left us for his parents to take care of as much as they could. And so divorced him, got married really quickly, had another child. All my children are girls. And so was married to that man for the better part of my life, so 17 years. Married him when I was 18 and divorced him when I was 35. So half of my life spent married to this man, and raised all my kids were raised as his, depending on his mood. And so there was some abuse that happened in that marriage. All of the physical abuse was in the early part of the marriage, but the entire marriage was, possessiveness and, emotional abuse and things like that. My children and I both endured it. So, whenever I left him in 2007, I believe, I started on a journey of finding myself and healing myself. And I didn't get those years as a young adult to grow up as most people do, because I was caring for my children and was in, life was hard. So I didn't get those years to grow up. So I started that process when I was about 35, which has been about 9 years ago now. And I remember I was stopped at a stoplight a few months ago, and I remember having the realization, sitting at the stoplight, that I have finally become close to the person that I thought I could be the day that I walked out the door. And so it's been a journey. It's just been a journey of self-love, and I try to share that with other women. I have a real passion for helping women see themselves as valuable, which I think the majority of women don't.
It's a tough thing.
Goodness sakes, I'm
Yeah.
incredibly proud of you.
Yeah.
That
Thank
is-
you.
just to be able to sit and talk about it so openly like that.
Well, it was a
Because-
process.
Yeah, it is absolutely a process, and women have to remember that no matter where they are in a stage, if something like that is happening to them, or their own personal, whatever this personal thing is that is yours and that you feel like you have to overcome or move through, that there's so many of us that are on the other side of that, looking back over our shoulder going, girl, you can do this. You can absolutely do this. And even in those moments where you're not sure exactly what it's going to look like for you, keep going, because it gets better. In fact, it gets good.
You know, I think it's interesting too. I think it's that isolation that we put ourselves in that almost creates more judgment. It's like when you get out there and really, you know, tell your story and that kind of thing. I think there are so many people who, I don't know what your experience has been, who really support you and will promote you and will say, I've been there too. I've had those thoughts. I've had those feelings. I want to read some of the little excerpts from the Hostage Project here in just a little bit. But as I was reading that stuff, I'm like, I've felt all that before too,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, maybe I've not been through every situation that other people have been through, but I think at one point in our lives, in our, you know, evolution in this existence anyway, we've all kind of felt a little pang.
Yeah,
of,
your worst moment is your worst moment. You
Yeah.
can't compare it to somebody else's worst moment, but your bottom is the bottom. So, man, I respect people that have hit that and been able to come back.
Yeah. He's saying it's time for a little break, so let's take a little commercial break, and we'll be right back with Marsha Lane Foster and talk a little bit more about the Hostage Project.
Awesome.
Welcome back to The Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy.
And this is Cryssie.
And we have Marsha Lane Foster in the
Hi.
studio this morning. Hello, Marsha.
Marsha Lane.
But I just had her pull up on her phone since I had it on my phone. It's Lane Foster Fine Art, LaneFoster, fineart.com. And this is the Hostage Project. And I'm going to have her talk about this a little bit. The images are absolutely beautiful. And so I was asking her a little bit about that this morning. But I want to just read one of these little excerpts. This one, the woman has chains around her face, and it says servitude, and it's beautiful black and white. But she says, seeking freedom, I consistently imprison myself. My concept of happiness is unattainable in this present world. I want to fly, soar away in an endless flight of bliss. I want to escape the reasoning, the planning, the chess game that is life. I've been told I'm refreshingly honest. I'm not sure what this means, as I feel like a textbook liar nearly all the time. Oh my gosh, it just makes me almost
I know, I'm
tear
tearing
up.
up. And I wrote it.
Who doesn't feel like a textbook liar sometimes?
You have to understand, too, listening to this, the visual is haunting, especially when you put it with the words. I mean, what an amazing gift you have. That is really...
And I shouldn't have interrupted it by like just saying that, but I'm just like got a little overwhelmed because, you know, we've talked about that before. Lying to yourself is the worst lying that we do.
Yeah.
And, you know,
And what we are best at.
and what we are
sometimes.
best
Yeah.
at. So maybe you're referring to the transparency I have concerning my past, my hurts, my current feelings. Some people avoid their feelings. Avoidance is a coping mechanism I employ nearly daily, but when it comes to my emotions, I compulsively feel each one, feeling I'm a liar if I don't. Every one of them is intense, and I'm rarely capable of indifference. The only consistency I can rest in is my emotional inconsistency. I'm going to read that again. The only consistency I can rest in is my emotional inconsistency.
It's really powerful stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes I just have to love me for the crazy me I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Marsha. That's just beautiful.
Not the first time we've been brought to tears
I
on
know.
this show, but goodness sakes, that's just a testament to how powerful your work is.
Thank you.
really is.
So
Really is.
that narrative that went with that image within the Hostage Project, there's 12 images, and each one has a narrative. And that was written in 2010. So 2007 is whenever I left that long marriage that I had never known anything different. And so in 2010, I began writing these stories down that happened to me. And what I noticed through the years between 2010 and 2015, I have them on an online blog, and I would go back and read them ever so often. What I noticed was, as I read them each time, they started losing their power over me.
Yeah.
So it was almost at first, when that started happening, it felt a little bit like I was reading someone else's story, and I didn't so much identify it as me. And then as I continued to read it, as I said, it stopped having power over me. And then whenever I was pulling the hostage project together in late 2015 for the gallery reception that was planned in February of this year, I knew I wanted to put narratives with them, and I thought, where is this going to come from? And I thought about my journal that I had kept, and so I went back and printed that journal, literally took a pair of scissors and cut out pieces that I thought would possibly go with all the images, and then pieced them together like a puzzle on the floor in my office.
That is just
beautiful.
fascinating. What a crazy process.
Which is really
because
cute.
That was going to be my next question, was what really came first for you? But this almost wasn't in your mind
I had no
technically
idea.
going to be pieces that all fit together, and yet in the end they did.
Yeah.
And that's
And even from her
crazier.
youth, this was like, I just think it's so beautiful when you look at a life that's just laid out of just, you were talking about your superpower being synchronicity. None of this is synchronicity because it's all just beautifully laid out. But she said when she was little that she used to look at National Geographic magazines and not just look at the pictures, but read the stuff, the story that went with the pictures.
So that
So
you understood
that was
it.
just your conditioning,
Yeah.
preparing you for creating the story that goes with the
Well, I am
pictures.
chronically wordy, and
Hey, can I use the? I'm a little chronically wordy. I've had
wordy.
people tell me that,
Yes.
not in those happy words. But
so what I've learned is, on Facebook, people read 2 lines and they're done, but I can't say it in 2 lines. So, but anyway, those stories lost their hold on me, and so 2015 was my biggest year of healing yet, of the healing that started in 2007. In late 2014 in December, I began artistic coaching with a artist from New York City named Daphne Chan. She was doing a project about transgender individuals called Transparency, and I contributed to her crowdfunding campaign, and a perk of one of the contributions was a coaching session with her.
Oh, wow.
So-
Mentoring is so important.
Coaching
we've been
is
talking about that
incredibly
so much.
important. So I did that session and then decided to do more sessions with her. And when I did, I had a homework assignment from her to go on an artist date with myself, which I did. And so from that artist date, I saw a trunk, and when I came home, I was journaling about that, and I was sitting in the living room with my fiance. He had the TV on. I was journaling, and I was literally walloped upside my head with a vision of a woman in a trunk from above. And I was overcome and overwhelmed with feelings of what it was like. Sorry. Whenever I was very young and had 3 babies, and my second husband worked very hard, and he took care of our financial, physical needs, but I was alone a lot with my kids.
Yeah.
Times I didn't have a car, there were times I didn't have a phone, and I felt very isolated. And I remembered what that felt like, and it was so intense. And the word hostage kept coming to my mind, and so I went to social media immediately and put out a message and said, this is for any woman who wants to answer. What has made you feel held hostage in your life, or has prevented you from prospering? And I started getting a flood of personal messages from women that I knew. Some of them I didn't know. Some of them I knew, and I had no idea they had been through these things. Could not believe how transparent they were being with me. And so from these messages that these women sent me, I came up with concepts. Also that night, I randomly messaged a woman who I knew from Facebook. I had met her at a couple of weddings that I had shot. And I said, do you want to this is what I said verbatim. I said, hi, how are you? She said, great. I said, I'm going to ask you a weird question. And she said, okay. And I said, would you get in a trunk naked and let me take your photograph? And
Unfriend.
Unfriend.
yes. But no, this was late.
I'm sorry, I just gotta let that soak.
Yeah. This was
That
Layla
is
Dyke.
hilarious.
Layla is the model. She's the sole model of the hostage project, so she's the same woman in all 12 images.
Wow.
There's a lot of images nobody has seen, but she said yes. And I talked to her later, and I said, I can't believe you said yes so quickly. And she said, well, trust me, there was freaking out immediately after I said yes.
Like, what did
And
I just agree to?
Exactly. But she said yes, and she came, and I know she was terrified. But that was the first image that I shot of the project, was her in the trunk. And it shot a lot of images that didn't make the 12, but that one did make the 12, because that one was me.
That's beautiful.
Right. I was Eve, the curator at the ACO, when I installed the project. We stood back and looked at it, and it brought me to tears. And she said, which one of these is you? And I said, 2 of them are me, the one of her in the trunk, and then the other image that was the most me is called Religiosity. And so she's nude, and there's all 5 of the major religions in the world are represented in this photograph, and that's more of my past, but those 2 are the most me of all of them. But the concepts came from the things the women sent me that night as a response to that message. So all of their feelings, and it was very challenging to figure out how to make not intangible feelings and emotions to translate that into something tangible. Women hold themselves hostage in their mind, but there are some physical aspects to the project too. I had women message me who had been physically held hostage. The project, I was angry when I started this project. It was my healing. 2015 was the final piece of the puzzle of my healing, which is an ongoing process, but that was when all of the stars lined up for me. The project started as a statement on domestic violence. That's where it came from, because I felt held hostage, and not only was I had all these issues going on at home, but I never knew what mood he was going to come home in, or if he was going to be drinking or not. And drinking is when things got ugly. So whenever these women, I'm sorry, I just keep losing it.
Like, we're messaging you about their different stories and things.
Right.
And
Well,
some of them were actually physically held
they
hostage.
were. So we keep not only, because it started as a statement on domestic violence, and I was angry when I started it. And then in the mid part, because this project was shot or photographed in 2015 as a whole. In the middle, it became more about what keeps women from prospering. And then at the end, it kind of came full circle around. I mean, I'll be honest, I was angry at men in the beginning. I really was. And so it morphed into what holds women back, keeps them from prospering. Then at the end, it came full circle around to, this is pretty much the human story. It's whether you're a man or you're a woman. And then I also realized I didn't want to alienate everybody. I wanted men to be able to appreciate the project also, and even says in my artist statement that I'm not picking on anybody, basically.
But that's a really, think about that though, that's a really interesting process that you went through as you were completing the project itself from your own mind.
You went
that
from
it did
victim
become, first it was that moment where you're angry. I mean, you start out kind of helpless. And then once you get angry, it gives you enough energy to kind of push through and start processing.
Yeah, that was
all
the
of that.
catalyst,
So,
definitely.
Yes, and then that shows in the artwork. That's so interesting to me how those steps kind of evolved as your feelings about it changed. And in the end, there was, okay, here's the acceptance of what I have created. I'm not trying to cut anybody out, but please understand that this is the process I've been through.
And a lot of
gorgeous.
people's process, yes.
And how often does it get to be documented in such an artistic and beautiful way that a lot of different people are going to be able to embrace? Bravo.
Yay!
That is awesome.
Okay, they're saying it's time for a little commercial break, so let's take a little break and let's come back and let's talk a little bit more about that and some of the other things she's up to and how you can get yourself, your legacy made. And we'll be right back with The Naked Doctor. Hi, welcome back to Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy.
And this is Cryssie.
And we're in the studio with Marsha Lane Foster today.
Yes. Gosh, this is this is intense.
I'm
but
ruining
awesome.
my makeup.
I know we've had a couple of really intense moments, but that's good. That's what I like about this show. We laugh, we cry, we talk about things.
We talk. It's good.
It's awesome.
So I think that's beautiful, and we were just talking about the hostage project, and my perception of the whole thing, I clearly saw it on the healing side of things, because I just saw it as a beautiful work of art, and I really resonated with a lot of the words in there and the prose and the words that go with the pictures, and I just resonated with all the times in my life. And it was interesting, you said this has been a huge time of healing. I know so many people from like 2010 to 2015, that 5-year period, and I don't know if it's just because I know a lot of women who are kind of middle-aged like me or going through their midlife crisis stuff, but it just seems like a very growth period. I feel like I was asleep like the first part of my life, and I was in a marriage for 22 years, absolutely wonderful man, just I can't say anything bad, but it was just kind of one of those kind of emotionally absent. And, like you said with your mom, when she was depressed and she was emotionally absent, that's one of the worst kinds of abuse and neglect that you can experience. And my husband is ex-husband is a wonderful man, and he meant no harm or no abuse by it, but I think just had his own issues of kind of attachment issues and things like that. And so many times, and this is kind of the first time I've ever really talked about this publicly. Again, I don't want to say that he was a bad person in any way, but people always said, "Are you married?" because they never saw him. And I was just thinking about yesterday, I was spending the time with my husband's smaller siblings, and I was in the park with them, and I was thinking about spending time with my son, and my husband was just like absent at the time. And so the neglect just I felt hostage to being in a marriage, but not really being married.
Because there's that part of your mind that's saying, I signed up for this forever. Yeah, and now this is what my life is going to be forever. Yes. And I don't like this, but I have to put on this face like I do, because there's all these people around me that are expecting me to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I have made agreements about all this, but I've slowly, we talked about that, you and I both, when we were going through some things. It's like you start to make these small compromises, and a small compromise doesn't seem like much, and then you do it again and you do it again, and you kind of go to sleep, and then you wake up one day and realize that you have compromised yourself into this corner that you can't escape from. And I always thought, if I went back to myself X number of years ago and said, hey, by the way, in a few years, this is where you're going to be, this is how you're going to feel, I'd say, you're crazy. I would never let myself
would never sign up for that.
But because you made these little tiny compromises where you're like, no, this doesn't feel right, but it's just this one thing, you just all of a sudden wake up and go, who am I
Sometimes
day?
it's survival, too.
And it is survival sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, with, I know when my kids were little, I remember having the thought, I can stay here and endure this, and my kids can sleep in their bed tonight and have their toys and their things, or I can leave and they can sleep in a shelter tonight with strangers and have to share a bathroom. And so
because it feels like, and we've used this analogy a lot, like your life's been shook up like a snow globe, and all the pieces are just flying around you, and you have no idea where it's all going to fall, and you dread that. You don't want that to come, but there's a point where we were saying this can either be easy or it can be hard, and the longer you wait and the more pressure builds, the messier it's going to be. You'll still wind up in a better place at the end of it, but you just have to know.
Well, and part of lying to yourself is, when I look back on my life, if I'd been honest with myself, I wasn't happy in my relationship with my ex from the very beginning. And we were married almost 17 years before my child came along. So I couldn't even use the excuse that I didn't leave because of my son. I mean, it was harder because then I had a child, and, it made things much more complicated. you know, but if I'd been honest with myself from the very beginning, which is
but
really hard
we get
to
scared
do.
too.
But we get scared
because everybody around us is telling us we should be really happy. Oh, look, you have a great husband.
Well, that's where the guilt.
Tammy, you have this great life and a big house, and you're doing great, and so you should be happy. Yeah, it's great. I feel great.
And I think that's where the guilt comes in. Women are such champions of guilt, and I don't know
where is that coming from.
I'm not sure, but in my work, I see it constantly. And I worked with it for a long time, and I've just recently let go of most of it. But where the guilt comes in is you think, well, I should be grateful. Look at everything I have. Oh, things could be so much worse. You know, I'm totally ungrateful to not appreciate what I have, and so.
You have to separate that out, I think, because guilt and gratitude, you know, I'm a big proponent of gratitude. Gratitude puts us in what we call stage 3, which is that, you know, that place where you can really experience things and have a full life, instead of that stage 2 is like the victim mode we talk about. So I'm all about gratitude. But, you know, there comes a point, too, where life's an experience, and you, I don't want to use the word deserve, because then you kind of get into self-worth issues and self-love issues. Everyone deserves love, and everyone deserves to have the kind of experience they want to have here.
Right.
But, you know, I think as far as, like, when you're kind of jumping in and splashing around, you know, we just want to judge it's good or it's bad, or the experience is good or bad, or, you know, we have all these constraints. You talked about religiosity, you know. Religion a lot of times, I'm not knocking anybody's religion or God or anything like that, but I am saying that sometimes some of that judgment and those controls and that fear box us in and make us make decisions that we would normally not otherwise make. Because, you know, if I looked back on my life and said, you know what, this isn't really what I envisioned the way this was supposed to go, and, you know, I think I'm going to go do something different. How, you know, and I'm grateful that things went the way they went, or I wouldn't have my son, and I wouldn't, you know, be who I am today.
Right.
But, you know, how different if we could empower our children, our girls, to stay with what feels good, stay with, you know, and then we wouldn't be in those situations that kind of lead us down
not
those
having
paths,
shame
those compromises.
attached to any of that. Being able to say, hey, this really isn't going the way that I wanted it to go. I think I'm going to make some changes in my life, but it's that fear of the shame that you would feel of everybody around you discussing it and knowing what was going down, and, you know. And I also want to say this goes as much for men as it does for women. I am sure that really, if we looked at numbers, somebody put that in front of us, that would be pretty equal. There are men that wind up in the same kind of situation, in emotionally abusive and physically abusive relationships. And I gotta imagine the pressure on them is pretty hard too, because the fear and the shame that comes with being a man who's being mistreated in that way, there's, you know what I mean? There's a little bit more of a stigma attached to that. So I gotta say, it's even across the board. But as women, because we are more emotionally open with each other, there's more discussions like this going on around with groups of women than there are with groups of men.
Well, if I could pick a word out of what you said, Tammy, is vision. And that's really what I try to do in my art and in my boudoir business, is to show women that they can have a vision for what their life can be. And I don't remember having a vision for what my life could be until I was, you know, between 35 and 40. We've got to teach our daughters, we've got to teach these young women, we've got to get them when they're young and teach them that you can have a vision for your life and you can move towards that. And that's, you know, I get 50-year-old women sometimes in my studio, and they are so beaten down from life, and they don't have any vision. And just to see how this process sparks something inside of them, and suddenly they're living.
Yeah.
It and the Hostage Project was about vision too. I wanted to spark something in people and have them realize that they can have the life they want. They can create their life. They can create their experiences. It's not just go with whatever comes down the pipe, which I used to believe that, you just take what you get and you make the best of it.
Yeah.
But you can
There's
actively
not a mold.
create.
That's what I want my girls to understand. There is not a predetermined mold that you're going to have to pick and try to cram yourself into.
You get to make your own.
You get to decide what all of that looks like, because it did seem like that for us. There was a very narrow, wife and mother, or hardcore career woman, or,
and that's
I kinda
so
wanted to be that
empowering
sculptor that lived out in the middle of nowhere
when you
in a
realize
cabin. I did want that.
Cats.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Cats in a garden.
So it's so empowering when you realize that, and I know things happen that we can't control. I'm not saying they don't, but it's so empowering when you realize that you're the master of your own destiny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly
Huge.
what it
That's
is. What's the
huge.
saying? Pain is inevitable, suffering is not. So, that's one of the most empowering things that I think anybody can take away from what we're saying today, is that things are going to happen. That's life. That's the experience. Yeah, you didn't sign up for that. But what you do with that is up to you.
Yeah.
And it's a complete choice in your experience, how you're going to feel about it. They're saying it's time for a little break, so let's take a little break here.
Break time.
And we'll be right back with the Naked Doctor. Welcome back to the Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy.
Welcome back, and this is Cryssie. I can't see the dance I'm doing, but
It
it's
is a
really
great little
nice.
dance, a little flowy.
This is Marsha.
This is Cryssie.
In my sexy voice. No,
Marsha Lane Foster.
I do not have a sexy
Everyone
voice.
should have their regular voice, their sexy voice, and their radio announcer voice.
Yes. I have many more personalities than that.
Yes, I know, everyone.
My voices are my personalities. So I just want to make sure that we get everything in, because we only have about 6 minutes in this segment. So, Marsha shared her story with us. And, what she makes the biggest part of her life work now is helping women just feel beautiful and empowered, and this process of using your story as a catalyst. Again, with the, I'll mess up the boudoir photo name, but bedroom
Boudoir.
photos.
Boudoir.
Basically, it's just about feeling pretty. And so when I first did my photo shoot, I pretty much was thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then I got all scared because I thought, who's going to see these pictures? And so, I just used a big man's white shirt, and I just felt beautiful in that, or I used underwear that really wasn't any more revealing than a bathing suit,
Right.
And so we actually went outside and took some pictures. They had kind of a private area out back, and then they had some beautiful furniture, and they did my makeup, and it was like glamour shots to the nth degree. Those old glamour shots were just so cheesy.
They were hot.
But I just felt beautiful, and they gave me the option to Photoshop or not, and I had a few Photoshops just for fun, but some of that realness is just really nice too.
Right.
But the most beautiful thing, I think, is that I'll have those to look back on when my skin was still pretty estrogenized or whatever.
We make up words here at the Naked Doctor.
Estrogenized.
She knows. She's a doctor,
The
so she can say
hormones.
things like estrogenized, and it's like right there.
That's a great experience that you had. I think the difference between a little bit of what I do, and I get an occasional bride, but I kind of bill myself or bill Freedom Boudoir as a personal development experience. So my clients work with me between 4 and 6 weeks, and usually longer, because if I have a client,
that's part of the coaching that you do.
right?
Oh,
If they
cool.
need to,
wow.
if they need to pay out, then I will allow them to do that. But so minimum, they're going to be with me 4 to 6 weeks, and so the process starts out with a consultation. It usually starts in their mind way before that, and then they come in for a consultation. We talk about why they want to do this, and most of my clients are women between the ages of late 20s to 60. And so last year was significant because I photographed the most mature woman that I ever had photographed. She was 62.
Really?
And yep, she told me she wasn't quite to her, it was in the summer when she booked, and she said, I get my first Social Security check in November, and baby, it's all yours. And so she did.
Awesome.
And
I'm
so
loving this.
yeah.
I'm loving it.
so we do the consultation. We talk about why they want to do it. I tell them my story and tell them my passion for empowering women, and then I teach them how to plan their wardrobe for their session. So I think men think women know about lingerie, but really we don't. Outside of bras and panties, most women don't know lingerie or even have it. But it's not all about lingerie. So I'll teach them to plan for their session and plan for their wardrobe. They come in on the day of. They're with me for about 5 hours. So 2 hours of hair and makeup, and that kind of helps them settle into their surroundings and get comfortable with what's going on. And it's kind of like a slumber party with my makeup artist, Ashley Gregory, and them and me. And so while they're getting their makeup and hair done, I'm looking through their wardrobe and planning in my mind where we're going to the poses we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So then they shoot with me 2 to 3 hours, counting breaks. Send them on their way with a gift bag, and then they come back in a few days to see their photos in my studio. I don't send a gallery online, because I'm a firm believer that no woman should be left alone with her boudoir photos. Until
especially when you're being introduced to them, it's like you gotta have a guide.
Until it's the final product, you are not allowed alone with these in a room. So they come back and see them. I have a process to help them choose their favorites. They're going to see between 150 and 200.
Seriously?
Yes.
Wow.
So I kind of, I'm prolific in whatever I do. Right. So there's a lot of photographs, but I help them choose, and then they decide how they want to showcase those, whether it's an album, portfolio book, a wall hanging, occasionally get one. Or I sell digital files too. So when they choose those, I put them into their products, and then so they'll come and usually make their last payment and pick them up. And so they get really comfortable with me. Most of my clients end up being tribe members and friends, and kind of go from there and talk to weekly generally after that. So
it's a process.
It is a
and
process.
You have a beautiful gift for people. Can you tell them what that gift is that you're giving today on the show?
I am giving anyone that hears this show or
Facebook or any of
however you hear of it, play it for your friends. You're going to get $300 in product credit with me. So when you come and you book a session, when you come back to view your photos and choose how you want to showcase those, you already have $300 in the bank towards your album. So
they just have to mention that they heard it on the
They just mention that they heard it whenever you come for your consultations. That's the first step of the process, is a consultation, and I call it a personal development experience, because I watch these women grow during this experience. And I watch how they perceive themselves change, because there is something incredibly powerful about the reflection of a photograph. So it just...
How do they contact you?
That sounds like a blast.
I'm
going to say that whole process that's much cooler than I even thought.
Yeah, I'm going to totally do it. And I'm thinking my mother-in-law too is just she just loves like selfies and stuff. I think she would really love the experience.
It's a very extensive experience. So they can go to my my boudoir website. It's nwarkansasboudoir.com.
Now spell boudoir. Isn't it like
yes, NW Arkansas Boudoir BOUDOIR.com, and then there's a contact form on there. You can see some of my work on there, or I just going to put this out there. I'm pretty open, but my phone number is 479-841-5539, and a lot of women like to text for that first contact, because this is scary. It really is. This is scary. They want to kind of be a little bit anonymous until they can ease into the idea of doing this, and that's totally okay with me. I'm all over Facebook, Marsha Lane Foster. Find me there.
Sweet.
How fun. All right, it's been a great show this week. Thank you so much for being here.
So blessed, so grateful to have been here. Thank you.
So fun.
Oh, hey, I'm going to be performing at Krabby's on July 3rd, 6 to 9 that evening. There's probably going to be a crab boil and some great food, so if people want to come out and hear some blues and sing along with me a little bit and have some love and some alcoholic beverages. Everybody's off the next day for the 4th, so there's no excuse.
Oh, I'm excited.
Have a good time.
I'm going to be there. I have it blocked off. I'm very excited. Very cool. Please message us on the Naked Doctor Facebook show. Like us. Give us comments. Anything you want to see. We're going to be live on the Bentonville Square with the Farmers Market the week after your July 3rd gig.
Right.
So we're going to be at Bloom Hills on the Bentonville Square during
I
the
love
Farmers
Bloom Hills.
Market.
My friend works there.
Come back for the Naked Doctor. We love you all. Have a blessed week. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next week on the Naked Doctor.
The Naked Doctor Show is produced by Toy Robot Productions in association with Butler Broadcasting and Better Living RX. Our audio engineer is Earl Hale. Our technical engineer is Matt Wright. Our executive producer is Dr. Tammy Post. I'm Cryssie Hale, and this has been The Naked Doctor.